An Apple a Day by Hyper-Me. Chapter 20. Elle pretended to have fallen unconscious by the time Isha pulled up behind the warehouse half an hour later. The warehouse had holes in the roof, and the door looked as if a single tap would knock it off its hinges. The walls were gray concrete and had a slight red tinge to them. It was in the middle of nowhere. Isha unbuckled himself from the car, walked around the front, and lifted the unconscious Elle from his seat. He had his eyes closed on the way in, but had no problem memorizing the pathway back to the front entrance. It was just a straight line, after all. Elle was gently placed down on the ground. He felt ropes being tied around his ankles and wrists as he remembered the crime scene pictures he stared at for hours. All the victims were tied up. Isha hummed a joyful tune as he tightened the knots. Elle reminded himself that he is supposed to be unconscious, as that unconscious people do not wince when their circulation is being cut off. After he was tied and secure, Elle heard Isha walk away, and the front door open and close with a large boom. He popped open his eyes to find himself completely alone, minus about 20 large cargo boxes and 1 or 2 scurrying rats. Why had Isha left him alone, he wondered. Isha kills when his victims are awake, he remembered, and leaving them alone for a few hours will give them time to arouse from the drug's effects, just in time for Isha's playtime. Elle mused silently, rubbing his wrists and ankles against the ropes, finding the binds loosening. With more effort, he was able to create a large enough loop in the rope for him to escape with ease. It would be best, he decided, if he walked around the warehouse for a while, to gain an upper hand in case a time comes when he had to run. But what if Isha were to come back during his wandering? No, he thought Isha would return once the drugs started to wear off and he became more coherent. But if he would appear before the drugs wore off too much, the victim would be aware enough to escape. Elle bit his bottom lip. He had taken the drug about 12:30, and the clock showed 1:30 when they arrived at the warehouse. 1 hour since he's taken the drug, and if Elle remembered correctly, and he usually does, Rollifoil takes up to 3 hours to wear off. With a shrug, the rope fell limp from his wrists and onto the floor. Elle reached down to the bindings on his ankles and carefully slipped it off. Isha won't be back for 2 hours. He's got time to explore. First object on his list, look for Clack.
Have you had any luck, Matsuda?
Aizawa asked.
We've been driving around to every warehouse we can find, but we've yet to find him.
Oh, no! Matsuda nearly cried. They left! They had to! It's been an hour since they left! Isha wouldn't have stayed at the club. Can't I leave and search for warehouses?
No, I've got a better idea,
Soichiro said over the three-way call.
Aizawa, you and Mogi keep searching for warehouses. I know it's hard since you're not used to the area and you don't have a GPS hooked up, but just keep looking. You can't be that far away. Matsuda, I want you to go to the police department straight away. Even if they don't have power, they might have a generator, unlike this crap hotel.
He muttered under his breath. Okay, Matsuda nodded. What should I do there?
Look for the video feed from the cameras outside the mall. Then try to hack into Elle's tracking device. He gave us the password for it. Do you remember?
Yes, 584102128, right?
Right. Now I want everyone to keep their phone at hand. Call if anything comes up.
Right, Chief. Elle quickly gave up searching for Clack and tossed his shoes off, needing to feel relaxation in at least one area. He shoved his hands in his pockets, frustrated. His left hand hit a metal object that lay in his jean pocket and pulled said object out. He nearly slapped himself on the forehead when he saw the metal object was his watch. As he checked the time, he wondered why Isha didn't change his clothes. With past victims, Elle had discovered that every victim had a change of clothing, from their originals to an exact copy, in case of tracking chips. This was why Elle's tracking chip was under his nail for preparation for new clothes, but in his worry he failed to notice he was never undressed. Elle didn't bother to think why. He was grateful for his watch. After a half an hour of wandering, Elle found the warehouse to be quite small and quite empty. The 26 cargo boxes were large and weighed nearly a ton, but couldn't do much for hiding him for an extended period of time. He attempted to open one, thinking inside would be a nice hideout, or maybe hold a weapon, but the tops were bolted shut. The rats scurried around his feet as he walked, glancing curiously up at him. He had stepped on one by accident not long ago. The room was poorly lit by 4 dim lights, and he didn't see nor hear the rats sniffing his feet. Elle looked down at them with equal curiosity, only to have them scamper off in fear. He moved to the front door, finding it locked. He frowned. There were no other doors around, and no windows. The only way out would be through the holes on the roof. Unfortunately, the ceiling was at least 35 feet high. He checked his watch again. 2:45. What was taking those policemen so long, he wondered. He felt under his fingernail to find the incredibly small tracking chip clinging on. Glancing up at the ceiling, wondering if he can actually climb up there, there was a flash of lightning seen through the holes. The lights flickered twice. Elle's eyes widened, and he ran to the front door, desperately pulling on the handle. The police have no clue where he is. The power must have cut out the minute he walked out of the club with Isha. They don't know where he is. He can't get out, and he's going to die within the hour. This can't be happening, he muttered. His hands were still on the door handle. His knees began to shake as he accepted his very possible death.
This was stupid. He laughed humorously. This entire operation was utterly ridiculous.
Elle slid down on the floor, lightly banging his forehead on the door. The lights flickered again, and the sound of thunder caused by the lightning filled the warehouse. Lights, lightning, light. Raito. Elle ceased in his head, adding. An image of Raito flashed in his mind. Raito scowling, Raito laughing, Raito smiling, Raito smirking, Raito blushing, Raito kissing him, Raito. With new determination, Elle pushed himself off of the floor. He walked back to the middle of the warehouse and slipped the ropes on, loose and easy to get out of. When Isha comes back, Elle will have someone to fight for, someone to look forward to once this is all over. No use throwing in the towel now. At 3:30 sharp, the door of the warehouse was flung open. Isha stood in the doorway, knife in hand. Elle was reminded of some sort of mad scientist with the lightning flashing about in the background. Looks like you're awake, my little patient, Isha grinned, walking towards Elle. You don't look scared like the rest of them. I guess I'll just have to make you scared. Isha gaggled, squatting down to get a good look at Elle's face. Do you know what I'm going to do to you?
Some sort,
Elle responded softly.
I've heard about you on the news, kidnapping young adults from bars and killing them in warehouses.
I knew I was taking a chance going to a bar, but I didn't think I would be chosen. Isha examined his face. You are quite good looking, and you're a doctor in training. A bad doctor in training. That makes you more than qualified.
So you kill doctors?
Elle asked. I've had a bad experience with them in the past. My mother and father were killed by screw-up doctors, and my brother was arrested doing the same thing I'm doing right now. I won't be arrested, though. I'm smarter than my dear deceased brother.
You're awfully chatty toward your victims?
Elle said, trying to gain himself more time, but also not to piss the man off. I prefer to call them patients rather than victims. Isha grinned. I like to talk to my patients before I put them under the operating knife, just to freak them out. Doctors do that all the time, don't they? He asked with a sickening twinkle in his dark brown eyes. They explain to their patients about their surgery, and then they drug them up, perform the surgery, and then let them go, right? That's what I do, only I move the drugs too before I talk to them. And I guess I never let them go, now do I?
So you kill doctors in training. Why not just kill regular doctors who screw up?
Because that's what my brother did, and I'm not ending up like my brother. If I target college med students, then fewer students will want to go into med school. Then we'll have no doctors.
Doctors are quite important to the world, Elle said cautiously. Don't you have your own doctor that helped you?
Isha's twisted smile transformed into a frown. Yeah, my doctor helped me out once or twice, but he still needs to pay the consequences
of becoming a doctor and helping you out,
Elle offered. No! He spat, spit flying onto Elle's face. His uncle. His uncle was a doctor. I've never met him before, but I've heard great stories about him. Elle's keen memory replayed the moment when Raito mentioned this during dinner. Right, Yagami-sensei's uncle was a doctor, Isha continued. His name was Yukiru Hino, Yagami-sensei's mother's brother-in-law, I believe. One night, 39 years ago, he gets a divorce with his wife and causes the man to go into a raging depression. He drank to a level .15 nearly every night until one day he goes in to deliver a baby. But in his drunken mind, he saw her labored breathing and red face after having the baby boy and immediately thought she was due for a heart transplant. But oops, he forgot the anesthesia and the poor woman was awake and aware the entire procedure. Well, half of the procedure because she died halfway through it.
So you're after Hino-sensei's nephew for revenge against your mother.
He was the doctor who started the chain hatred after all. Once she died, my father worked himself to a broken leg where a fake doctor fooled around with him, killing him, and that sparked my brother's hatred, which got him arrested and left me all alone at the tender age of 11. Lovely life, don't you think? He smiled cynically. Only one of Hino-sensei's relatives practices medicine, and that would be Yagami-sensei. Hino-sensei killed one of my family members, so I'm going to kill one of his. Ishi began to play with his knife. He shined the surface on his black cotton shirt and raised the blade to the light, examining the shine. This was a lovely chat, my dear friend. I didn't catch your name, did I?
L. My name is L.
With that, he pushed the ropes off of his wrists and kicked the bonds off his feet. They fell loose to the ground as L dashed toward the only exit. Isha roared behind him. Ow! He raced him to the door and was unnaturally quick, beating L at the last second. His blade was up, glistening against the lighting. Isha was laughing in between pants. L, so you're the world's greatest detective, huh? This is your trick to capture me, by letting me kill you. Works for me. He plunged the knife forward, missing L's chest by centimeters. The detective bent his back backwards, forming an upside-down U, and pushed off the ground with his feet. With his legs flying in the air, he kicked Isha in the face, the chest, and hand. The knife spun on the ground. Isha dove for the blade, slashing at L. With no time to react, he received a long gash on his left arm, tearing through his shirt and skin. L darted in the opposite direction, skidding behind a cargo box. He clutched at his arm and noticing blood quickly soaking through his shirt and leaving splatters on the floor. That's your hiding spot. A poor one, if you ask me. L couldn't hear his footsteps. He was guarding the exit. He hastily yanked his watch from his pocket. 3:57. Where are these cops? Chief! Chief! The power's back on! Matsuda shrieked in surprise as the dark room he was in suddenly lit up. Do you have power as well?
Yes, I do. Thank heavens, too. I found L's tracking chip. Aizawa. Mogi, are you listening?
Yes, Chief, this is Mogi. We're currently 5 minutes away from your son's clinic. Where is L?
He's on Taketsuro Street, about 30 minutes away.
He heard Mogi tell Aizawa to step on it.
It's a small street. The warehouse shouldn't be that hard to find. It's near Closer Drive.
We're going as fast as we can, Chief.
Watch it up, Deputy Yagami said. Round up as much backup as you can and follow them. Drive as fast as possible.
Got it, Chief. El pressed his back against the brown cargo box, trying to quiet his breathing. His head was feeling light from the loss of blood, but he struggled to listen. He still couldn't hear any footsteps. He glanced at his watch again, a little past 4:05. He needed to buy more time, he repeated in his head. You know, El, Isha yelled from across the warehouse, I used to think you were respectable. Now I see you're nothing but a coward afraid of a little trip to the doctor's. That's right. Al was afraid of going to the doctor's. His first trip was a nightmare, and he vowed to never step foot inside a doctor's office again. That was until he met Raito. He didn't need to be scared anymore. He was healthy. He wasn't the same dying child that he was years ago. He had his health now. He heard Isha's footsteps and froze. He needed a weapon, he thought, searching for any useful object on the ground. There was a small squeak from his right. El found a large, dirty gray rat staring at him curiously with big black eyes. Isha stopped a few feet short of the cargo, blade up. Come on out, El, he sang. El jumped from his hiding spot and tossed the squealing rat at him. The detective quickly made a dash for the exit. The rodent landed on his face, scratching his knees and nose as it waved its legs around. Isha yelled, throwing his arms to his face. The forgotten blade in his hand carved into his right eye, and he screamed again. The rat jumped down from his face, hissing at him and scampering off. Just as El made it to the exit, Isha bounded after him, blood oozing down his face. El tugged on the door furiously with no prevail. The door finally creaked open, but a fist grabbed the back of his blue dress shirt. El struggled in his grasp, but damn did this man have a tight grip. Isha cackled, reaching into his back pocket, pulling out 3 small white pills. This, Isha explained, showing El the pills, is GHB. I don't use this drug often, but I'll make you a small exception. The effects start in just 15 minutes and can last for 3 to 4 hours. My favorite part, however, is the fact that one small little tablet can hold a lot of power. I wonder if that thin body of yours can handle 3 at once. He pried Elle's mouth open. The detective tried to bite down, but Isha crushed his bare foot in response. Tears leaked from his eyes as he felt and heard his foot breaking. Long, dirty fingers were shoved into his mouth, literally pushing the pills down. Elle felt the drug slide down his throat, and Isha tossed him to the ground. He immediately took his own finger to his mouth, but the murderer quickly captured his hand. "No, no," he chastised with a curt kick. "No throwing up." Thanks to the high dose of GHB, Elle could already feel the effects taking control of his body. He felt exactly how he acted at the bar. Drowsy, dizzy, and sick. His eyes were focusing and unfocusing while his body was sweating and shaking with tremors. He couldn't tell where Isha was. At one point he was right next to him, at another Isha was on the opposite side of the room. The safe bet was to escape no matter the distance. He got to his knees, his arms barely able to hold his weight, and pushed up to one foot. The broken bone snapped again, piercing through the skin. Elle hopped to the other foot, barely conscious to the cruel laughter behind him, and lifted himself up. His head spun, his body ached, and suddenly Isha was in his face. His legs gave in, and he crumpled to the ground. Isha easily lifted his woozy body and dropped him rudely in the middle of the warehouse. "I don't need you awake for the surgery. You're going to die of drug overdose soon anyway." He ripped away his blue shirt. Using the last of his strength, Elle tried to crawl away. Isha plunged the knife into his left shoulder and twisted the blade. He screamed, the world going black before returning. "No," he pleaded. "Stay back." Isha pulled the knife out at a 45-degree angle. Elle could barely feel it. The drugs were blurring the boundaries of reality and fantasy. He knew his body ached, and that's all he knew. "Do me a favor and stay still," Isha cursed, giving him another blunt kick to the abdomen. He crouched above the man and placed the sharp tip of the blade on his back. Elle hissed as the cool metal touched his hot skin. The knife rose into the air, and just as it sliced his back, his vision went black as he escaped into unconsciousness. "Take the left here," Mogi instructed, pointing at the turn up ahead. "Do you see it?" Aizawa nodded and jumped the curb, skidding to a halt in the empty parking lot of the warehouse. They scrambled out of the car, guns at hand. The gray door was partially open, and with a little push, they were in. "Police!" Aizawa screamed. "This is the police! Come up with your hands up!" "Where are they?" Mogi whispered, gun pointed up. There was a cackle of response. "Where are you?" he shouted across the room. A medium-sized, 30-odd-year-old man with blood dripping from his eyes stepped out from behind the cargo box. His hands were up. "You got me. You got me. Let's just relax now, Aizawa unlocked the safety of his gun. "Where is he? Where is your victim?" Issa shrugged. "He got away." "That's a lie. His tracking chip says he's here." "Should have come up with a better excuse," he muttered. "Say, do you two guys need a checkup? Visiting the doctor is a healthy activity in your life. I could give you a free exam." "Where is he?" "Not even a little shot." "Where is he?" Isha pointed his thumb behind him. Mogi formed a large arch around the killer, his gun pointed at his chest. He watched the policeman with curiosity. Mogi walked around the cargo box and his face paled. "Oh, God!" Isha took a few steps away from the door. "What is it, Mogi? Did you find him?" He saw a blurred speed toward him. Isha slammed his shoulder into his as he ran past. "Get back here! You're under arrest, Isha!" Isha was a quick man, always 5 feet in front of him. "Stop!" He kept running, laughing joyfully. He was too fast. Several loud sirens stunned Isha into tripping over a bush. Headlights soon followed, landing on the man tangled in the bushes. His khaki attitude quickly dissolved. Aizawa sprinted at him, tackling him to the ground. His one hand had his arm in a painful twist, and the other shoved his face into the wet grass. "You're under arrest, Eruchiko Isha, for murder of the first degree," he said, pulling out his handcuffs. "You got him, Aizawa!" Matsuda cheered, running over. "Guys, take him downtown! Oh, I've always wanted to see that!" The two men behind him seized the squirming Isha. "You don't understand," he wailed. "I didn't complete my mission. My revenge on Yukihiro Hino was never accomplished. Let me go and I promise I'll give you a free doctor's appointment." The man dragged him off. "What happened?" Matsuda asked. "Where's Al?" His partner cursed. The two dashed inside the warehouse. "Mogi, where's Al?" Aizawa huffed. Mogi pointed to the detective spread out on the ground. Al's body color was an unnatural white. His shoulder bared a wound poorly covered with his shirt, and his side was forming a large and ugly bruise. His right foot had a compound fracture, several small bones sticking out of the flesh, and his left arm had a long bloody incision. The most predominant injury was the large kanji carved onto his bare backside. "Moon?" Matsuda asked, reading the kanji. "Why moon?" "No," Aizawa whispered. "Raito. Yagami-sensei uses the kanji for moon in his first name." Mogi yanked out his cell phone. "Chief, this is Mogi. Isha is captured and on the way to the police department." There was a large sigh of relief on the opposite side of the phone. "We also found L, and he's badly hurt. He's still alive, but we need to get him checked out right away."
"My door should be open right now,"
Shoichiro said. Mogi could hear him leaving his desk.
"His man doesn't nearly 4 anyway. He's safe now, and I'm glad. Thank you."
Deputy Yagami said he would meet them at his son's clinic in half an hour. Matsuda took L in the cop car with him, settling him in the back seat. Mogi and Aizawa followed as they sped 20 minutes over the speed limit.